Do you want to learn how to make money like President Donald Trump? Watch this video till the end. This is a step-by-step on buying an investment property inspired by winning methods used by Trump over the years. If you want to start a real estate portfolio like Trump, this video is for you. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. How you doing today? I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous if you were to ask me. And if you are doing as great as I am, go grab a cup of coffee or tea or vodka and let's roll. Today I want to talk to you about how to make money like President Donald Trump. Basically, this is a family, Donald Trump continued a family tradition in the real estate development over many generations of the Trump family. Donald Trump came along to multiply his family's net worth and brought an aggressive business attitude to his father's company. By the way, folks, this is not about politics. We're focusing strictly on business, and we're trying to emulate, we're trying to understand the tactics that Donald Trump has used over several years to grow his real estate empire globally. So right now, nowadays, you have Donald Trump still sits on the golden throne, and he's backed by a diversified investment portfolio that anyone can only dream of. So whether you agree with his views or not, you got to admit that the man understands business and knows how to turn a profit and capitalize on any investment opportunities, right? So the thing here is that over several years, Donald Trump was successful enough to find numerous ways of making money in real estate, from apartment buildings to supermarkets to golf clubs. You can bet that this is the man who really understands. And we're showing you right now on the screen the Trump organization. He's a real estate organization, and you can see that they have diversified over the last few years, from hotels to golf to residential to commercial to estates to lifestyle and media. Think about that. That's just fantastic. So I just wanted to lay out there the foundation, the premise of today's conversation. So we are basing our tips and tactics and strategies on the methods that the Trump organization has used over several years. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, it is very important to understand, if you are a beginner and you want to get into rental property, we first need to understand what a rental property is. What is it? This is a residential or a commercial property that is leased or rented to a tenant over a set period of time. So you have short-term rentals like vacation rentals, for instance, and you have long-term ones like the ones that you have under 1 to 3 year lease. So you can have things like single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes. You also have, those are for residential. You also have commercial rental properties. You have multifamily, industrial, office space, retail space, and multi-use. The great thing here is that you have to understand. So if you want to get into investment property, you need to know what kind of a property you want to get yourself into. Do you want to go residential? Do you want to go commercial? And you also have to understand that even though the income coming from the rental properties is considered passive, 100% passive, there are always risks, and you got to do a lot of work from the get-go. Everything from deciding whether the investment property is the best way for you to invest in real estate, having a team, securing financing, learning how to calculate cash flow, deciding on the property you want to buy, and also whether you need to hire a property manager. We'll cover everything in this comprehensive show, in this comprehensive guide. So now let me give you the step-by-step here on building a successful rental property business. Number one, decide whether an investment property is the best way for you to invest in real estate, because there are other ways to invest in real estate, and buying investment property is not the only one. So you can even buy REITs. There's something called real estate investment trust. You can also buy the stocks of companies that are commercial developers and residential developers. So you don't have to risk your own skin in the game if this is not for you. So you have to think about whether this makes sense for you. There are a few things you need to consider. Time commitment, because even if you decide to hire, let's say, a property manager, owning an investment property, one or more can be an active, time-consuming way to invest in real estate. So do you have the time for it? Another thing you have to think about is liquidity, because investment properties are not a liquid investment. So if you want to receive fair market value for your rental properties, they can easily take months to sell. even years, depending upon the economic trends we're currently in. Imagine if you had bought an investment property back in 2008 and a few months later the financial crisis hit. You would have waited 2, 3, 4 years before selling the investment property. So you have to think about that. Liquidity is a big deal. We also have capital requirement, because unlike some other forms of real estate investments, you will need a significant amount of money to purchase an investment property, right? Because even if you're thinking about the down payment of minimum 20%, if you're talking about a $1 million investment property, that's $200,000. So you better be ready. And I'm not even talking about closing costs and several months worth of reserves in the bank. So you have to get on the bandwagon of savings right now if your goal is to get into real estate property, rental property. And the fourth element you need to consider before getting to the investment property game is the unpredictability. It's very unpredictable, folks. If you're out there, you're a beginner, you're mulling over your options and you want to get into the game, you have to understand that although rental properties can provide you with a great income, it is not necessarily going to be steady income. And because properties become vacant from time to time and things break that you will need to replace. So if you are okay with these four drawbacks: time commitment, liquidity, capital requirement, unpredictability, then investment properties can be a smart choice for you. Otherwise, you may want to look elsewhere. All right. So as I said before, you can invest in a real estate investment trust or REIT, or a company that actually that like a commercial developer. If you want to invest in a single property but you want to have a passive role, you can also look into something called a crowd-funded real estate investment. Step number 2, and this is something that the Trump organization has done very, very well. You need to assemble your team. It's very important. If you're a newbie on the block, if you're a new real estate investor, you want to be surrounded by a world-class team. I'm not asking you to break the bank, to pay people a lot of money, but you need to have certain key professionals surrounding you. And this is something that the Trump organization has done impeccably from the get-go. I'm talking here decades ago, 30 years ago. So you need in your team, as a beginner rental property investor, you need a real estate agent, you need a property manager. We'll talk about that later on in terms of whether or not you need a property manager, because that's debatable depending on the kind of time you have. But a property manager, a mortgage professional, a real estate attorney. This is key. This is very important. I hope that you will not need to use a real estate attorney too often in the course of managing your rental properties. But you know what? It's a great idea to have one in your corner. You never know. So an investor experienced real estate attorney can be worth his or her weight in gold during, for example, an eviction, or if you get sued by a tenant. So you want to have a veteran, somebody who is really seasoned in the ins and outs of the market where the property is located. So your real estate agent can be a great source for an attorney, as most of them have someone they've worked with many times before. You also need an insurance agent, a home inspector. A home inspector is very important. You need one, even if you've agreed to buy a property as is, because if the seller isn't willing to make any repairs, you still need to know where the problem areas are and the severity of any damage, right? So having a great inspector can make the difference between one, knowing exactly what to expect when you close on a property, and effectively taking a gamble. And if you're a newbie, I would not suggest that you take a gamble. And the great thing here is that many inspectors also give preferential rates to investors who use them frequently. You also need an appraiser. You need an accountant. And you need a contractor / handyman. It's one of those professionals that you really need, because especially if you have multiple rental properties, you want to have a contractor or a handyman who really understands the ins and outs of properties in the area. Speaking about accountant, it's better that you get a CPA, a certified public accountant, so someone who understands not just the accounting side of real estate investment, but also the tax, the fiscal implications. So you want to have, so real estate is a tax advantage investment, that's for sure. but rental property taxes can be complicated, especially if you own several properties. Number 3. One thing you want to do is you want to determine where you want to invest. This is very important. So this is something this has to match your strategy, your own strategy in terms of where you want to buy the property. There are several free and paid resources to help you do some kind of market research on various areas of the country. So you can use them for information on the economic growth, housing demand, vacancy rates, average income, and average housing prices in different areas. Those are important elements. Why? Because the last thing you want is just to buy a property in an area that is economically on the decline, right? You don't want that. You want a community that is thriving, a neighborhood that is pleasant, where it's pleasant to live, that will attract families, and young couples. So the free resources include the Department of Numbers. We love this website. It's the Department of Numbers. It's www.deptofnumbers.com. And this is a free site with population, growth, housing, and economic statistics. Fantastic. And you have the government's, the census.gov, the Census Bureau. This is a great source of vacancy rates. And you also have the PwC's Emerging Trends in Real Estate. They publish, PwC stands for PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's one of the top 5 consulting companies, consultancies out there. So they publish every year trends in real estate, and you want to double check that too. So, and those are very important, folks. You want to know exactly what's going on. Why? Because you want to know, for example, whether or not the demand for rental properties is high in the area, and this is a product of housing supply versus vacancy rates, right? You want to make sure that job growth is stable or growing. As I said earlier, you don't want decline. You want economic expansion, job growth, and population growth. Those are great indicators. And you also want to have things like you want to know the average rental income, so that you are able to back up the purchase price of the rental property and align this with the funds you have available to invest. All right. So this is something you have to think about. So after identifying, say, a market to invest in, you want to look at the market on the micro level. So first, when I was talking to you about average income, job growth, demand for rental properties, I was talking about the macro, macro, macro. Now let's talk about the micro. You got to look at the micro, the micro level, the tiny level. So you want to identify specific neighborhoods or zip codes to target while considering the following for each specific area. So you want to look at the crime rate, very important, school ratings, average property value, average rent, and any specialized market to stay away from or target. For example, student or affordable housing. So it's really up to you. You have to think about what your strategy is, and based on that, you are targeting the area that you want to buy the property in. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. I hope you are doing fantastic. I'm doing marvelous. We're still having a conversation here around how to make money like Donald Trump. And what we've done is we have actually done research around the Trump organization. We have analyzed the companies over the last 30 years. We have analyzed Donald Trump's own deal-making abilities. We have read his books, and we have compiled this step by step to help you as a beginner real estate investor to make your marks in the industry, to buy your first property, to make sure that the property is well run, is well managed, and that you are able to derive revenue and profit from the property. Now, let's talk about number 4. You have to decide what to buy. And this is something that the Trump organization and Donald Trump himself does very, very well. You need to decide what you want to buy. So it's really a smart idea to define your investment goals. Do you want a single family home or a multi-unit property? Do you want a condo? Do you want a multi-family property with single family homes attached to it? It's really something you have to think about, and that will play an important role in your financing abilities. It's also smart at this point to narrow down the price point. Very important. As I said earlier, you will need a 20% down payment for an investment property mortgage and 25% down payment for 25% down payment in the premium markets. So in some places in New York or California, you might need between 25% and 30%. It also depends on your credit score. We're not even talking about that in this show, but the amount of financing you're able to get will be based on your credit score, your credit history, the solidity of your financial proposal, the kind of a plan you are submitting to the bank, to the lender. So those are things you have to think about, and decide what you buy, decide what you want to buy. This is an important element because this is where geography comes into play. Geographical location is important. You might want to focus your search in a specific neighborhood, or you might be flexible in this area. So when searching for a rental property, you can focus on the trendiest neighborhoods in your area, or you can focus on the school districts. Also, decide how much effort you're willing to put in. So you can typically find the best value in properties that need some repairs, but this creates additional work for you. So no matter what property type you choose, though, it is quintessential to know what qualities of the property type are in demand. So this includes things like the size of the unit or home, right? You can also think about the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, or possible amenities such as pool or fireplace. So if we talk about the Donald Trump, he has diversified in the last few years. Now they're doing residential, but they also do residential, like high-end residential that includes pool and fireplace. So it's up to you to find out what really works for you based on your target niche. And the thing here is that you want to find out if there is an oversaturation or undersupply of a specific property type. So you can look at the real estate rental industry sites such as Zillow, Hotbeds, or ForRent.com. Or you can even talk to a local real estate agent so that you can get more info on a specific market. So make sure you know what you're looking for in a rental property, including the square footage, very important, number of bedrooms or bathrooms, the type of build, do you want wood or concrete, the type of parking available, and the property type. For instance, do you want single family, residence, condo, townhome, duplex, triplex, fourplex, whatever. Next, you want to find potential rental properties to invest in. So once you are able to decide what you want to buy, now you have the gist. The gist here is to find that property that will make you happy, the property that will meet all your financial goals, your investment goals, and everything. And there are several ways you can do this. So, and this is important. There are several ways you can find investment properties. You can search in the MLS or work with a realtor, right? So what's MLS? MLS is the multiple listing service. So you have websites such as REALTOR and Zillow. They will let you set up search parameters and alert you when a new listing matches those criteria. So you can also reach out to a real estate investment agent in the area and ask them to set up those same alerts for you. Remember though that a quality realtor can be an excellent source for connections to banks, lending institutions, contractors, or suppliers that will come in handy when buying a rental property. I was talking earlier about constituting a team. You need to have a team, and this is why and a realtor is an important part of that team. The great thing here is that a quality realtor can also help you in terms of finding that rental property you are looking for. Now, when it comes to finding potential rental properties to invest in, you have three things you can do. You can buy a turnkey, something called a turnkey rental property. So certain companies specialize in selling turnkey rental properties, so that these rentals require little to no work after buying. So this is a passive investment, mostly for cash flow. One thing I want you to understand is that in most circumstances, the properties have been renovated, they have an existing tenant in place, and they have a third-party management company handling the landlord responsibilities. So that's one. You can work with a wholesaler. So you can either buy a turnkey rental property, or you can work with a wholesaler. So a wholesaler is he or she will find off-market investment opportunities at below market prices, and he or she will negotiate a low purchase price with the seller and assign the contract to a third-party buyer at a higher price. So the wholesaler makes a profit from the difference between the purchase price and the sales price. Now, the Trump organization has engaged in this sort of practices, this sort of strategies in the last 15 to 20 years, and it has worked with them very, very well. Typically, though, wholesale properties require a 100% cash payment to close. They often need renovations or improvements too, so they might not qualify for financing. So you have to really think about those the liquidity constraints here. So besides buying a turnkey rental property and working with a wholesaler, you can also have direct marketing. You can engage in direct marketing, so you can conduct a marketing campaign. So you might use targeted online marketing or put out bandit signs. So direct mail marketing is another popular option. So in a direct mail campaign, for example, an investor sends a series of letters or postcards to off-market sellers. So companies like ListSource and DataTree, they will let you create and buy a list of people that meet certain criteria. So you might look for owners in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, properties that recently went through probate, or property owned free and clear. In other words, without a mortgage. So, and then you can narrow the list down by property features, such as the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and so on and so forth. So you can run your own mail campaign by typing or handwriting a series of letters or postcard. You can even hire a third-party company to do it for you. Next, you want to secure financing for the property. This is kind of important. You need to secure property and this is number 6. So if you're planning to pay cash for your first investment property, then you can just skip this section and go to the next one. But if you are thinking about borrowing, then you need to figure out where the money is going to come from, right? So you have conventional financing. So this is what I'm talking about when the money comes from a bank. So this can refer to a conforming loan, for instance. In other words, a loan which meets the lending standards for a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or another type of bank lending product such as a jumbo loan. The requirement for conventional financing of an investment property depends on factors such as the type of the property. So if you have single family or multifamily, your credit score, of course, your employment and assets, as well as your other debts. So you have conventional financing. You also have asset-based loan. So when it comes to long-term financing options for investment properties, asset-based loans are the main alternative to conventional mortgages. So if you want to qualify for an asset-based loan, you need to have the underlying asset itself. In other words, the investment property, and this must be strong enough so that the lender does not base the decision on the borrower's personal qualifications. What I'm trying to say here is that an asset-based lender will still check your credit score and use this to determine eligibility and your interest rate, but your personal debts, income, and employment situation will not be considered. And then there are other financing options. So you have second home financing. So a lender can offer 3 types of financing: primary residence, investment property, and second home. You can also do house hacking. So there is a way to get loans to get funding for your investment property through house hacking. We'll probably just it's a little complex scheme, so we'll cover that in another show. If you want us to cover it, please mention this in the comment section. So we'll be very happy to work on it. If we see a lot of people who request this house hacking, we'll certainly get into it. And then you can also finance your real estate, your rental property through home equity, right? You can tap into the equity you've built in your primary home through either a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. You can also use 401k loans. So if your plan allows it, your 401k or other qualified retirement plan may allow you to take loans of as much as $50,000. Remember though, while borrowing against your retirement savings is not always a great idea, it can be a source of low cost financing for an investment property. You also want to learn how to properly calculate cash flows. This is something that the Trump organization does very, very well, because cash flow is one of the most important concepts for new real estate investors. And you got to understand that. So at a very minimum here, what I'm talking about here is that you have to be realistic. And that's the key word. The key word is realistic. It's not about just having a very fancy estimates of saying, oh, I'm going to I'm going to collect this and this in rent, and then I'm going to have this and this in profit. No, things are a little different. There is no bulletproof way to determine how much your expenses will be, but it's kind of great to always set aside, that's what experts are saying, to set aside 15 to 20% of your rental income to cover vacancy and maintenance. So a good cash flow calculation might look like this. So you want to start with the property's expected monthly rental income. You want to subtract your mortgage payments, including taxes and insurance. Subtract your property manager's fee, if applicable. You want to subtract any other recurring expenses, for instance, pest control or lawn maintenance. And you want to subtract your vacancy and maintenance allowance. For example, we're showing you right now on the screen. Let's say you want to acquire a duplex that will rent $2,500 per month. So your expected mortgage payment will be $1,200, and your property manager charges 10% of collected rent. So you don't pay any other property expenses, and anticipate vacancies and maintenance will consume 15% of your rental income. So as you can see on the screen here, we have rent collected $2,500, mortgage payment $1,500, $300 for property management, vacancy and maintenance allowance $400, and total expenses amount to $2,200. So you can see that I have put there $400 for vacancy and maintenance allowance. So you have a cash flow of $300. It is very important to have in mind when you are analyzing your cash flows to have in mind something called cap rate. And the cap rate is a net operating income. That's the formula. We're showing the formula right now on the screen. So net operating income divided by current value or purchase price. So you need to actually analyze this number and keep track of it. The great thing is if you have a good team and you have an accountant, a CPA, he or she can help you understand and track this number over time. You need to identify all costs that may be associated with a property. And this can include taxes, property insurance, of course. Flood insurance may also be required, water and sewer. You have garbage, electric, gas, homeowners association fees, advertising, maintenance. Now, the industry standard is 1 to 3% of the property value. Lawn care and property management if you use a third-party manager. So most rental properties use a cash-on-cash, something called a COC. So this is a cash-on-cash return when determining a return on investment. However, the cap rate is beneficial. The one that I just showed you earlier is actually beneficial when investing in a property that has more than one rental unit. So it is, as you analyze the financials of your the potential financial data of your future investment, it is important to keep in mind that there is always a chance the property will not produce the profit or return initially projected. As a matter of fact, you could also have unexpected problems throughout the venture. So there is not a perfect return on investment, ideal cap rate, or best monthly cash flow. It all comes down to your personal investment goals, desired rate of return, and threshold for risk. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. We are also having a conversation here around how to make money like Donald Trump. And I'm giving you a comprehensive step-by-step on buying your first rental property, or just buying a rental property in general. Whether you are a newbie or an experienced investor, all the steps we're talking about here were compiled from after studying the tips, tricks, and tactics that Donald Trump and his Trump organization have used over several years, even decades, to be very successful in real estate investment. Number 8, you need to decide on a property to buy. By the way, if you love the clarity and the quantity and the quality and the clarity of the content so far, please consider subscribing to our channel. Turn on the notification bell so you can be informed in real time whenever we drop a new show. And we drop this kind of shows, guess what? Every single day. Every single day we drop this kind of show. And like, comment, and share this content if you have questions or you believe we're adding value to your life. So you need to decide on a property to buy. And this is kind of cool, right? This is the fun part because you have decided what type of property you want to buy. You know how you are going to pay for it. You have a team in place. That's fantastic. You know how to find cash flow in rental properties. So you're ready to start looking for properties. So one thing that you have to be very careful is that when you look at potential properties, don't look at it through a homeowner's eyes. For example, don't say like, oh, I hate that kitchen, or I hate that backyard. No, you are an investor. Nobody says, listen, I don't like that Tesla stock, or I don't like that Amazon bond, so I'm not buying it. No, you're an investor. The property might not meet your tastes, but you're looking for something that will be rentable, not that you like. You are an investor, so pay attention to that. So things like the number of bedrooms, school district, and access to interstate highways are quintessential. They are important. So you want to focus on those key elements rather, not on whether you like the home or you don't like the backyard, or you love the backyard. No emotion. We are investors here. So after you have identified a rental property that's a good fit, it's time to make an offer and negotiate a purchase price. This is where having a strong team, a solid team around you will be very crucial and very helpful. So your real estate agent can help guide you through the process, as well as help you navigate the time between having an accepted contract and closing on the property. Actually, this is the time also, depending upon the complexity of the deal, or the location of the deal, or the nature of the deal. It's a great time to have your lawyer also come on board, because the last thing you want is to buy property that is encumbered by pending or past litigation. So you want to have your lawyer give you the clear, the goal, so you can just go ahead and just make an offer and get the property. Once you have the property, once you have the property of your dream and you are now an owner, you got to decide whether you want to hire a property manager. And this is something we've seen, again, the Trump organization doing very, very well in the last 2 to 3 decades. So there are several ways. So a property manager will use his or her experience to price your property appropriately so that it collects the maximum amount of rent possible. Here, the property manager will market your property to prospective tenants, will conduct background and credit checks on prospective tenants, collect rent on your behalf, deal with maintenance issues and tenant complaints, pay bills on your behalf, such as any landlord paid utilities. So the thing here is that, of course, with that quality of service, this quality of work, comes a price. There is a price tag to it. A good property manager, according to experts, it's easily worth 10% of the rent. So if you have lots of time on your hands and want to save money by self-managing, by all means, please give it a try. It's a decision that you have to make based on your own situation, including your resources. You have to understand that managing the property, besides what I just said, includes other stuff. For instance, screening new tenants, handling leases and move-ins, coordinating tenant maintenance requests, communicating with tenants, collecting rent. Sometimes they also send notices, including late payments and eviction notices, move-out inspections, and disbursement of any deposit fees after move-out. So there are 2 options when it comes to property management. So either you do it yourself, like I said, if you have time, or you hire a third party. Now, if you want to manage the property yourself, it is important that you need to either find a platform. There are a lot of platforms out there. For example, you have a platform such as Cozy or Avail. They're a free online rental service, and what they do is they let you collect deposits and rent online. They manage the lease, including sending it for electronic signatures. They will send automatic text or email reminders that rent is due or payment is late. They also automatically calculate if a fee is owed for being past due, and they deposit all payments directly to your bank account. One of the last active roles that go into managing the rental property is handling repairs and maintenance. So if you're not a handyman, or you're not interested, you don't have a knack for this side of the business, it's just better to outsource, because as a landlord, it's better to be proactive with maintenance so you're not dealing with emergency repairs. So before the tenant moves in, ensure the property is in good working order. So you want to check out plumbing, electrical, the roof, HVAC systems, the water heater, fans, lights, and appliances. And it's also it may be worthwhile to provide your tenants with reminders or even supplies for routine maintenance, such as changing the air filter. So many landlords create a list of local service professionals, such as handyman, plumbers, electricians, and contractors. So what you want to do here is that you want to position yourself so that the tenant has access to a good list of services. So if there is an unexpected repair, you yourself, you as the landlord or the tenant, knows exactly whom to call to solve the problem quickly. That's very important. So before the tenant moves in, you want to do a walkthrough of the property. You want to take timestamp picture of each room and note the condition of the property in an inspection report. So the tenant and landlord should sign this agreement upon move in and move out, because this agreement shows the tenant your expectations for the rental condition upon move out and lets you refer to the initial condition if there are any disparities. And this is important, right? So upon move out, you want to use the same checklist to reassess conditions and determine the portion of the tenant's deposit they get back. Another important element here is to craft a strategy for local networking. This is very important. This is something that Donald Trump, and obviously he does it very well. He has parlayed his contacts to the White House, and the Trump organization is very good at that. But you need to craft, if you want to be a successful rental property investor, you need to craft a strategy for local networking. And there are 5 elements, only 5 key stakeholders you need to focus on. Number 1, the politicians. Whatever area you are buying properties in, whether it is 1 property or 2 or 3 or 4, you need to know key politicians at the mayor's office, including the mayor, at the city council. You really have to rub elbows with those folks. That's if you are trying to be successful in that industry if you are in it for the long run, you need to. So politicians are the number 1 category. Then you need to have contacts in the business world. You need to contact the local chamber of commerce. You need to be active in industry groups. You need to be member, if available, of real estate investment real estate groups. You need to also know legislators and judges, both at the local and state level. I'm talking here about assemblymen and women, judges, state representatives, and senators. So you want to be able to, you want to have a say in the circles of power, in the quarters of power. You want to have people that you know there. It's very important. The 4th stakeholder category is local community leaders. I'm talking here about community activists, religious organizations, so members of the clergy, private organizations, private charities, public charities. So you need to have some kind of contacts. Your Rolodex must include members of that category. And the last category that you need to be very comfortable with and you need to cultivate a strategic relationship with is reporters. And you've seen that Donald Trump has been a master in the last few years and decades to use the media to actually push for his own agenda. And this is something you also want to emulate if your goal is to be a successful real estate investor. So reporters, you want to have journalists as friends. You want to cultivate the relationships with them so that you're constantly being solicited if there is something going on that might affect the market where you have your rental property. And the great thing here is that journalists are also a good source of info, so you kind of have some intel on what's going on in the industry. Very important. Number 11, if you want to be you want to make money like Donald Trump in the real estate market, you want to be a successful real estate investor, you need to diversify your investments. Very important. Diversified investments in general. I mean, when I talk about diversification, it's everything, right? So let me give you an analogy, an example here. If you are buying stocks or bonds, I would say don't focus on only one industry. Don't be concentrated on one industry, right? So buy stocks from tech companies and then consumer goods and then auto, and then so you just mix things up. Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. It's the same metaphor, the same principle applies to real estate investment. So what I mean by diversified investments in real estate is that you need to invest in different types of real estate properties and different housing markets. Very important. Different types and different housing markets. So in order to diversify your investment in real estate, you want to look for opportunities to invest in a number of different property types. I'm talking about rental properties, fix and flip properties, and different markets. So that, I'm talking here states, cities, and even countries. What are the benefits here? Why do you need to diversify your real estate investment? You want to reduce the chances of losing money due to asset-specific risk or due to market risk and shifts. Things happen. For example, if your money is all tied to a number of rental properties in the same market, and that market's dynamics results in the rental rates going down, this will affect your entire investment because all properties that you have invested in that neighborhood were affected at the same time. So having diversified investments means that if a certain property type or housing market is affected negatively, only a fraction of your investments will be affected with it. And some of your other investments might actually improve at the same time if they are in different markets. So you want to balance things out. You want to hedge your risk. So those are the pros of diversified real estate investments. But there are some cons also. There are some disadvantages. And the major one here is that you will not be making any burst profits. If you're trying to make money overnight, it won't happen, because this is actually the trade-off for having more stable investments that are guaranteed to keep the cash flow coming in at a slower rate. Basically, choosing to diversify your investments means that you will be reducing the chances of making large sums of money in a short amount of time, but you will guarantee that you will be making profits with greatly reduced risk over a long period of time. So it's all about what works for you. It's all about your own strategy, your own risk tolerance, your own investor profile, and what kind of financial goals you have as you begin your real estate property investment strategy. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another section of the Awesome Sweetie Kiwi Show. We're also having a conversation here around how to make money like Donald Trump. And we are right now at number 12. So we are giving you a 15-step comprehensive tutorial here. And we have already covered 11. And I'm giving you the number 12. You want to start thinking about running your business strategically. So even if you have one property, if you have one rental property, you still need to run the business strategically. And here are a few things we learned from after studying the Trump organization's tactics and strategies. We have read books written by Donald Trump, and here are a few things that we have actually memorized after reading everything from Donald Trump. So, what can you learn from Donald Trump's methods of making money in real estate? Number one, you want to expand your selection pool. So what I'm trying to say here is that you want to lay out your options on the table. You might find one real estate venture that will be making money in real estate, right? However, if you have several options to choose from, you can select the one with the most rewarding longevity. So remember that Donald Trump took real estate as a full-time job. So he pursued the many investing options and came out 7 steps ahead by diversifying his investment portfolio. So in the long run, this translated into owning many real estate properties ranging from multifamily homes, housing developments, and even golf courses. So you want to expand your selection pool. Number 2, you want to see the potential in things, not the current state. So if you see an area that is in decline, you have to see the potential. You need to have some kind of lively imagination. You need to see the potential of things. So it's not about just the current state of the neighborhood or the property market. Is how that property market will look like in the future. Think about those early investors in Vegas who saw a desert, and they were able to transform that desert into what we have now, the world's gambling capital. with casinos galore. So it's all about seeing the potential in things, not their current state. And you want to stay focused on your goals. It's very important. The thing here is, once you define the kind of property you want and you have secured financing, you have a clear idea of the niche you're going after, the kind of properties you are interested in. Stay focused on your goals. Don't try to always look at, no. Define the goals of every possible business venture and you focus on it until you achieve it, or you realize that it's not achievable, then you move on to something else. Don't try to pursue 3, 4, 5 business ventures at once unless you have the team, the resources, the financial resources, and the intellectual capacity to pursue them. Also, save money. Saving money is very important. This might sound a little crazy for some folks who know Donald Trump as very lavish guy, but he basically, the way he runs his organization it's just fantastic. He runs the Trump organization in a very effective way. And the whole goal here is to maximize overall income, rental income, and minimize rental expenses. Remember, a penny saved is a penny saved. Doesn't matter if it's $1 or 1 cent or $10, it all counts. So you want to focus on running your organization as cost effectively as possible. One thing that is very important is that you need to, and that's number 13, you want to protect your new investments by investing in something called landlord insurance. So in addition to homeowners insurance, consider purchasing landlord insurance. So this type of insurance generally covers property damage, lost rental income, and liability protection in case a tenant or a visitor suffers injury as a result of property maintenance issues. So to lower your cost, you want to investigate whether an insurance provider, for instance, will let you bundle landlord insurance with a homeowner's insurance policy. Right? So landlords, and this is great for if you want to rent out a residential property such as a house, a vacation cottage, an apartment for the first time, so that you are able to cover yourself. Please don't assume that your homeowner's insurance will cover all the costs in the case of a natural disaster, accident, or other damaging events. That's a rookie mistake. No. So you need landlord insurance, because chances are that your policy only covers owner-occupied homes. So if you start renting out to someone else, the coverage no longer applies. So, and as renters are generally not held liable when a large appliance malfunctions, a person suffers an injury on the property, a forest fire damages or destroys your home, or burglars simply empty the place, that means you could be left out to dry for this or other misfortunes caused by humans or Mother Nature. So this is where landlord insurance comes in. So before you begin thinking about price shopping, consider what you specifically need to address, and you want to protect against those things in your rental property. There are three important things. There is a trifecta you want to think about when price shopping for landlord insurance, right? So you want to have property damage. So this is coverage in the event that the real estate or furnishings suffer from a natural disaster. I'm talking about fire, electric, gas malfunction, earthquake, vandalism, or irresponsible tenants. So if possible, try to get a policy that offers replacement cost instead of the actual cash value, especially if fixtures and furnishings are old, or a predetermined lump sum of cash. So besides property damage, landlord insurance also covers lost rental income, rental default insurance. And the third thing is it also covers liability protection. So this is for the medical or legal costs that might ensue if the tenant or a visitor suffers injury due to a property maintenance issue. For instance, I'm talking about icy walkways, or architectural collapse, or an out of control hive of bees, for example. And you might also get additional coverage if that's what you want. There are several common riders that can come with landlord insurance policies. You have guaranteed income insurance, flood insurance, emergency coverage, additional construction expense. The next thing you want to do is to choose a tenant. So after closing on the property, you need to choose a tenant, right? So screening tenants can mean the difference between what I call a quality renter that maintains the property and pays on time, or one who's late every month, stops paying altogether, or trashes the property on the way out. So you have you have services such as My Rental, Turbo Tenants, or My Smart Move. They can screen tenants for a nominal fee while keeping you in compliance with fair housing rules. Third-party management companies, they will handle the tenant screening process for you as part of their processes as well. So the thing is, you can do it yourself too. But if you want to do it yourself, please make sure your screening process is consistent for every tenant. Know what screening questions you want to ask and ask the fair housing rules. It's up to you to determine your requirements. So here are a few things you want to pay attention to. So income, consistent work history with a current and stable job, verifiable income. You want to see pay stubs, bank statements, or tax returns, credit that meets or exceeds your minimum requirements. In the industry, we have 620 as a common minimum. You want a criminal background check that meets your standard of prior convictions and misdemeanors, and previous landlords that confirm prior rental history and performance. So let's say if you happen to discover a misdemeanor or a criminal history, eviction, or another unfavorable results during the screening process, ask questions to find out more. And if the potential tenant does not meet your requirements for housing, which must be within the guidelines again of fair housing, you don't have to rent to them. Remember that even the best screening process can still result in a tenant who doesn't uphold the lease. Now, a lease is really and now we have to really talk about the lease here. A lease is really the binding agreement between the tenant and landlord, and this agreement outlines the responsibilities of each party. And you might have in a lease something like whether you want to specify whether the tenant can have pets, rules on altering the property, restrictions on painting, instructions for parking vehicles, the process for requesting repairs, rent due dates and late fees, how to remit payment, and any other rules and regulations the tenant needs to know about. Traditionally, leases can be 2 pages or 20 pages long. It really depends on the specific rental property and your own financial goals and your own risk management strategies. So there are dozens of free leases that can be downloaded on the internet. It's best to have a real estate attorney review or prepare the agreement for you. Because hey, think about it. If you spend 200, 300,000 or 400,000 to buy a rental property, it's worth it that you spend a couple of bucks, $50 or $100 to have a lawyer, a certified lawyer, a certified attorney, a certified expert draft you a professional lease agreement. And once you have a tenant, you got to focus on 4 key operational areas. And this is something that the Trump organization does very, very well. You want to properly calculate and estimate demand in the area. Do not overestimate. Do not think that demand is just so great. No, don't buy a property in a market that does not support your investment just because you thought it would be an excellent place to invest. This is kind of important for all rental property types, but it is especially important for vacation rentals because supply and demand determine the success or failure of your rental property. So you want to research supply and demand in your area. Number 2, do not underestimate expenses and overestimate rents. So beginner investors, they often get too excited at the prospect of owning a rental property, and as a result, they just overestimate the net rent. So it's best to err on the side of caution and run your numbers with a slightly lower than average rental rate. So if your calculations look good with this number, a market rent will be even better. So if you're doing this is kind of cool because it leaves flexibility in your rental price in the event of market shifts or if there is more supply than demand for your rental type in that area. So before buying a rental, it's always great to confirm your estimated expenses. So you want to research the annual tax rate. You can get a quote for a rental property insurance and look at historical utility bills. So if this is your first rental investment, consider adding a 5 to 10% expense buffer so that you are safe. Number 3, this is the third operational area you need to focus on. Keep up with maintenance and do not underestimate repair cost. Very important. Even if you save money for unexpected repairs and routine maintenance, you may not have enough saved when a major item needs to be replaced. This is very important. So keep a few $1,000s in a savings account as a contingency. So this ensures that you have additional cash, right? You have additional cash in the event of a costly emergency repair. That way you are really covered. You're really safe. And the last thing you want to pay attention to is that you want to start eviction quickly enough. So eviction is not fun. We know that, right? However, there is always the risk that the tenant stops paying, forcing you to evict. So know the laws for eviction in your state and don't wait too long before beginning the eviction process. Often, beginner landlords give the tenant multiple chances, and before they know it, several months have passed with no rent. They still end up evicting. So if the lease says you'll give a 30-day notice after a number of days of no payments, follow through with your lease agreement. Because investing in rental property can be lucrative, but you need to do your due diligence on properties, markets, and tenants. And this is a business. It's not about emotions. It's not about, no. If the tenant does not pay, you comply with the lease agreements and you evict them at the right moment. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Q. We're also having a conversation here around how to make money like Donald Trump. And I've given you the 15 steps, very comprehensive steps that you need to follow to make money like the President Trump and the Trump organization. Now, there are a few other questions that you need to ask yourself and things to consider before buying an investment property. Number 1, are you cut out to be a landlord? You need to really think about that. Right? Do you know your way around a toolbox? Are you a handyman or a handywoman? How are you at repairing drywall or unclogging a toilet? So those are things you need to really pay attention to. Of course, you can always hire a property manager, or you can hire a handyman a handyman, but you got to know a little bit of those things yourself. So property owners who have 1 or 2 homes often do their own repairs to save money. You also need to pay down personal debt. It's not really good to have to carry a load of debt and try to take on more debt. No, you want to secure a down payment. Remember, I was telling you this can be 20% or 30%. So you want to secure that. Either you tap into your own savings or you get a loan. Either way, it's definitely up to you, because if you don't have the 20%, you're going to have to pay extra in the form of PMI, private mortgage insurance. And that's really, that will be added to your mortgage every month. That could be high. Also, trying to find the right location. So don't be emotional in choosing a location here. No, it's not really needed. If you just need to have the eyes of an investor and be rational here. You have to make a decision about whether you should buy or finance. Again, this depends on your financial goals and also your financial situation. If you have liquidity, if you have cash, then it's definitely up to you to see. You want to be really careful about high interest rates, because the cost of borrowing money goes up and down based on a lot of things. And remember also that mortgage lending discrimination is illegal. So if you think, for instance, that you have been discriminated against based on national origin, disability, age, marital status, religion, race, sex, there are steps you can take. So you can even file, one such step is to file a report to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Also calculate your margins. So you want to know whether you're going to get like a return of 10% or 5% or 6% or 7% on the property. You also have to factor in unexpected costs. This is kind of important. You want to avoid at all cost a fixer-upper, because it's tempting to look for the house that you can get at a bargain and flip into a rental property. However, if this is your first property, that's probably a bad idea. So unless you have a contractor who does quality work on the cheap, or you are skilled at large-scale home improvements, you will likely pay too much to renovate. So don't go for a fixer-upper. Look for a home that is priced below the market and needs only minor repairs. You also need to calculate operating expenses, determine your return, and you always need to buy a low-cost home. Don't forget that you also have legal obligations as a landlord, and always weigh the risk versus the rewards when getting to the rental property market. All right, folks. This is the end of today's conversation. I'm going to quickly do a recap, and I was just having a conversation with you around how to make money like Donald Trump, and I gave you a 15-step full guide on investing in the rental property market. So you need to decide whether an investment property is the best way to invest in real estate. So you got to think about time commitment, liquidity, capital requirements, and unpredictability. Number 2, assemble your team. So a real estate agent, you want to have a good realtor, property manager, mortgage professional, real estate attorney, insurance agent, home inspector, appraiser, accountant, contractor, or handyman. 3, determine where you want to invest. 4, decide what you want to buy. 5, find potential rental properties to invest in. So you can search in the multiple listing systems, or you can work with a realtor. You can buy a turnkey rental property. You can work with a wholesaler, or you can engage in direct marketing. Next, you secure financing for the property. So you can get conventional financing, asset-backed loans, or tap into other financing options. Next, you want to learn how to properly calculate cash flows. You want to decide on a property to buy. Decide whether you want to hire a property manager. So I spoke to you about the things you have to be aware of when you are using a third-party management company, or what you want to do when you want to manage the property yourself. You want to craft a strategy for local networking, very important. You want to know the 5 levels, as I told you: the politicians, the legislators, the community members, the business people, and also journalists. You want to diversify your investments. So you want to understand the benefits of the pros and cons of real estate investment diversification. Try to run your business strategically. So you want to widen your selection pool, see the potential in things, not their current state. Stay focused on your goals and save money. And number 13, you want to invest in landlord insurance. This is very important. Spend a lot of time. I spent 2-3 minutes actually explaining those to you. Why landlord insurance is important. And you want to choose a tenant. And then next, you want to focus on the 4 key operational areas. So you want to properly calculate and estimate demand in the area. Do not underestimate expenses and overestimate rents. You want to keep up with maintenance costs, and you want to start eviction quickly enough. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.